Corey here with Corey's Coins LLC. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Disclaimer.
Corey here with Corey's Coins LLC in San Diego. I wanted to do a video to just kind of break down starting a cryptocurrency mining company. In this case, a cryptocurrency mining LLC here in San Diego. What kind of the things you might want to look out for are, and then also, you know, there's certain ways you can do an LLC, some easier ways, some not so easier ways, and also what kind of issues you're going to run into mining, especially here in California or in Southern California with energy costs, and also the kind of the way you can set yourself up for success based on where you put your money in your assets for your company, and how you can kind of set yourself up for success. So without further ado, I guess we'll just get into it. So I want to say about 6 months ago, I decided to start a cryptocurrency mining LLC, Corey's Coins LLC in San Diego. And the big reason why I went with the LLC was, one, for obviously liability reasons. I also have another business where I breed large monitor lizards that I've been doing for about 18 years. And these are all side businesses as opposed to what I do full-time normally. So I still have my full-time job. But the easiest thing to do, which was the most streamlined way to do everything, was to just use LegalZoom. And the reason why was because LegalZoom has a section specific for cryptocurrency mining, and it's a lot easier to have them set everything up and do it. And it was only a few $100s to have them kind of handle everything. So I just went in, put in my info. They register the LLC, and keep in mind, when you pay like a company like LegalZoom to set up an LLC, you're still going to have to pay for the LLC, like from California. So I think it's like $1,000 the first time when you do your taxes. You generally pay for your LLC, and it might be $800 after that every time, something around there. That's how it is in California anyway. So, you know, a lot of internet sites will advertise, oh, start an LLC for $30, start an LLC for $100. That's not how much an LLC is. Every single LLC costs the same amount from California. What you're doing is you're paying for that company to just file the paperwork for you. They're not actually paying for the LLC. They will register your company as an LLC, but you still have to pay California or whatever state you're in to maintain that limited liability corporation. So that's what I ended up doing. It was just easy and streamlined to use LegalZoom, and everything worked out really, really well. I ended up paying, I should have waited until the 1st of January of this year, 2022, to actually file my LLC, so that way I didn't end up having to pay the LLC fees, especially since I didn't really do anything with the company before then. I just flat out didn't think about it when I started the LLC. So I ended up starting the LLC last year, and then I ended up having to pay for the LLC during my taxes of 2021, and which was just a waste of money because I didn't use the company. So keep that in mind, that if you are towards the end of the year and you're getting ready to start an LLC, you probably want to wait until after that year to actually start it, so that way at least you're paying for the LLC for an entire year's worth of liability coverage, essentially. So once we had the LLC set up and created, that's when I decided that you know, before even any of this, you're going to want to set up kind of a business plan. And with cryptocurrency mining, there's there's a few ways you can go about doing this. Okay, the first thing you need to realize is that energy costs are your number one daily cost, period. You're going to use a ton of electricity, right? So depending on how much your electric rates are, will determine what sort of efficiency miners you need, and that will in turn determine how much capital you need to start your business. So I could just go out and buy a bunch of Antminer S9s, but they're obviously not profitable to run really anywhere unless you have a gajillion of them, just because the competition on the Bitcoin blockchain is just so high that you're not really getting a lot of block rewards for your hashing power. So, and on top of that, in some place like Southern California, where our kilowatt hour electric rate is the highest, I think, anywhere in the world now. It's definitely the highest in all of the United States. So I think it's somewhere around 36 cents per kilowatt hour now. It is not profitable to mine, really, period, here in Southern California. And it certainly is not profitable to mine using Bitcoin miners, just because of the sheer power that they use, the amount of money you spend on that power, the small amount of rewards you get. But let's say you're in an area where electricity is dirt cheap. And the cool thing about Antminer S9s, or a lot of Bitcoin miners, are cheap also. So you can get, a 13.5 Antminer S9, and you can crank them up to 17 terahash, and pretty sure it's terahash. And you can buy those for $400, $450, $500. So you can buy a bunch of them and run them. It's just that your return is not going to be a whole lot. Plus the payouts on whatever mining pool you're on, you would have to have a ton of miners going to get a payout in any decent interval to be able to cover expenses. So in Southern California, Bitcoin mining is pretty much out. If you're in like Texas or Florida or Washington or some of these other states where, price per kilowatt hour is in the 9 cents-ish, and you can get into an industrial building, so you're on industrial metering, it makes things a lot more easy as far as deciding what you can and can't run. It also makes your dollar go further, not just in the energy expenditure, but also in the hardware that you can buy, because you can hedge your bets as far as mining cryptocurrency against your hardware. So it's kind of a catch-22, because you can buy like 150 Antminer S9s, right? And then you're hedging your bets with the hardware based on how Bitcoin does, because you are mining Bitcoin. But also, like Antminer S9s aren't really worth a whole lot. So, you are hedging your bets, but that Antminer S9 is going to take, a decent amount of time to pay itself off, just because each individual unit is not necessarily creating a bunch of Bitcoin per unit. It's just that you have a ton of units. So keep that in mind also, that the S9 is, it's a great, beginner miner. It certainly can wet your feet in mining. And if you're like in an apartment or something where you don't have to pay electricity and stuff like that, it's cool to have one of them running. Somebody's probably not going to notice a huge increase in your electric bill just having one run. They'll notice the noise long before they notice the electric bill increase. So keep that in mind. Now, in my particular situation down here in Southern California, with kilowatt hours being so high, you run into kind of a conundrum. So basically, you have to run solar, number one. So we have a 78 panel, 480 watt per panel solar system going on this 30 by 60 steel building in the next few months. On top of that, we have 23 panels that are 375 watt on the home already. So that's a 7 kW system that's already on the house. It generally produces about 6,500 watts in peak power. We'll see how that does during the summer. But that is over 100 panels, solar panels on property. And the only reason we are able to do a system that large is because I spent 6 months getting a 400 amp service upgrade done on this property. You can't just put a gigantic solar system on a residential property, or any property for that matter, without having the service huge. Because if you put a system that large, you have to realize that a system that large essentially accounts for almost 200 amps of your panel. So you don't have any amps left to run a house if you have a 200 amp panel, because you are going to be running, all of your amperage is going to be used for the solar. Otherwise, when that system back feeds, it'll literally light the lines on fire and melt your service panel. So, you have to keep that into account. That you have to have the infrastructure there to support a huge solar system. So that system, when it's finished, will basically offset about $1,600 or so a month of electricity. So you have to keep that in mind, and that is the amount of money that I have to play with as far as electrical usage for the miners that I have. So now I at least have $1,600 a month. I know that number because I don't want to be pulling power and paying for it out of pocket, because 36 cents per kilowatt hour is ridiculous, and you do not want to pay that ever, period, when you're using electricity. So now that I know that if I have $1,600 a month to spend on electricity, and that's 100% free electricity, now I need to look at what kind of hash rate I need to be able to give myself a base salary, essentially. So generally what I did was I went on like the script mining calculator, So I'd go on there and I'd put in how much my kilowatt hours are, which I'll do 36 cents. And then I'd calculate out how much wattage different miners used and how many mega hash that was giving me, and how much money I could essentially make off of that mega hash. And I also have a bunch of Antminer L3 pluses, and you can crank them up to about 720 mega hash, but then the actual wattage goes up a bunch. So they become extremely inefficient when you take them off of factory overclocks. Your normal factory overclocks are about 660 watts and about 504 mega hash. So you want to keep them lower. It's more efficient to buy more Antminers and run them than it is to crank up lesser Antminers and run them to give you the same hash rate, because you're now pulling way more watts. On factory overclocks, you're doing, let's see, I'll just work this out real quick. So you're generally using about one and a third watts per mega hash on a factory Antminer L3 Plus. So anytime you start overclocking stuff, you're going to generate more heat, you're going to use more wattage. And they're just kind of operating outside their efficiency zone. So that brought me to my next problem. So the other problem is that now that I'm limited to $1,600 a month that are 100% offset by the solar system that I put in, which the other new solar system of 78 panels is going to be about $83,000 to $85,000 solar system. So now I need capital, not only to pay for that solar system, and to pay for it at a low interest rate if I'm using a loan, because I need to be able to make enough money from that available 100% offset wattage to be able to cover the expenses of paying the loan for the solar, so I'm at least getting that for free. And on top of that, I need to get miners that are efficient enough to where I can use that power wisely and create a base income for my company that should be pretty well set long term. So what I ended up doing was I can essentially run 3 Antminer L7s, okay? And Antminer L7s generally burn a little over 3,000 watts a piece, but they're about 9,500 megahash. So that basically nets you, a few $1,000s a month. We can actually plug this in to the online. Okay, so basically I pulled up the script mining calculator, and 3 Antminer L7s are going to produce about 28,500 megahash, and that's at about 10,275 watts, because they are around 3,400 watts per L7, and at an electrical cost of 36 cents per kilowatt hour, which is ridiculous. You essentially are going to be making only $54 a day if you were going to actually pay for electricity out of pocket. Okay, so let's say 54 times 30. So you'd only make $1,620 a month if you ran those 3 Antminer L7s and you were actually paying electricity, which is a testament to their efficiency, because if I plugged in the numbers to run an L3 Plus, we would be in the negatives. Easy. In the estimated profit, we'd be negative. It would cost money to run them. And that's where you run into efficiency issues based on your electrical cost rate. So you want to go to like MinerStat is a really good algorithmic calculator, and it keeps up to date with the current kind of values for hash rate, kind of what you're getting paid for your hash rate. And you want to just basically plug in whatever your electric rate is and what kind of miners you're trying to use, not necessarily the miner, but you'll plug in its mega hash and its wattage usage and see how much profit you can make, or if it's costing you money to run those. So in my case, I know that the Antminer L7 is extremely efficient because even at my ridiculous power rate, I'm still going to make money. But on top of that, I know that it's using each kilowatt hour better than any other script miner is, because I'm still in the positive, even if I have to pay out of pocket. So that means that every kilowatt that I make with my giant solar system that's going in, I know that that's going to be much better used by an L7. Okay, now the negative side of an L7 is that they're about $30,000 a piece. So this is where you come into how much capital you need to start an LLC, or not even an LLC, but just a cryptocurrency mining company or a mining, you want to go out and start mining, whatever you want to do. You need to look at your power rate, how much power you're using. You need to look at what types of miners you can get away with running using that power efficiently. And on top of that, when you figure out what miners you need, now you need to look at how much money those miners cost. In my specific situation, I have no choice but to get the extremely most efficient miners that I can. And right now, the most cost-effective and efficient miners there are usually like the Antminer L7s with the script mining, mostly because, I like Litecoin. I think Litecoin's an excellent coin. And also I like Dogecoin. I think Dogecoin is going to go places, So I know that if I get L7s, I'm going to make money, even if I didn't have the solar. So now I know that if I have 3 Antminers running, I can make over $4,000 a month profit with no electric bill, because I know that they use that much wattage. I know how much mega hash they have, and even with the crappy market that we're in right now for crypto, I know that these are still going to make, it looks like $143 a day. And that's obviously merge mining, Doge and LTC. So once I know that that's kind of what I need to get, now I can figure out how much capital I need. So obviously, if I'm going to run 3 amp miner L7s, there's some issues there. Number one, not necessarily being that I don't have the funding, because I do. It's that you need to find someone you trust and somebody local, or you need to purchase them from a platform where you're protected as a buyer if you can't find anybody local. Also, if you're going to go on eBay, look for people that offer local pickup, because if I'm going to spend that much money on eBay or anywhere else, I'm going to go get the miners in person. It is worth spending the, whatever it could be, $1,500 round trip to fly somewhere, put eyes on a miner, test it firsthand, and then either FedEx it, overnight FedEx it back, or take it with you on the plane, which is probably what I would end up doing. I'm trying to source some out of LA, which is only a couple hour drive from here. So you are going to be spending about $90,000 on miners, and you're going to end up with 3 box computers, you know. And I'm really lucky that I have a good relationship with a guy who does repairs also, which helps me out too. So if you want to do all this, by all means do it, but just be aware that if you don't have enough capital in the beginning to kind of get you going and get you the right equipment to start you off, it's better just to not make a company out of it and to stick to your normal 9 to 5. Continue to take that money, either invest it into crypto. This is not financial advice. Continue to invest it into crypto and build capital that way, or continue to buy miners and more miners and wait for, you know, maybe a market low where that particular miner is being sold for cheaper, and grab a couple when you can and kind of build your army of L3 pluses or whatever miners you're going to end up using, and you kind of stockpile them, and then, you know, if there's a chance or a time when you can run them and it's profitable, go ahead, but at least your bets are hedged against your hardware. So even if you buy that hardware and you end up not really using it a whole lot, as long as you take care of the hardware, you can always resell the hardware. Even if, you know, Bitcoin takes a dump or takes a hit and it goes down, you can, you know, you might be at a 20% loss on the Bitcoin that you've mined, but you might also only be at a 10% loss of the actual Bitcoin miners that you bought. So they kind of average out depending on how much you paid for the electricity when you mined whatever Bitcoin that you have. So keep that in mind. And on top of getting funding, which I did, so we're putting a couple $100,000 into the crypto mining company. We're going to get the L7s. We're going to pay for the solar on the roof. And all of that will be at a lower interest rate. So we'll be able to cover all of our expenses and then obviously have a positive income outside that. But also what you want to do is have something else that your company is doing besides mining. So in our previous videos and walkthroughs, you've probably seen that, you know, I do L3 Plus repairs and rebuilds here. So I have a bunch of L3 Pluses that I've collected over the years, a bunch of L3 Plus boards, the hash boards. So all of that stuff can get sold to be supplemental. So if it turns out that, you know, hey, Litecoin and Doge is doing crazy, I really want to crank the miners up this month, that's fine. But keep in mind, okay, well, I'm going to probably need to sell 4 hash boards on eBay, which should give me about $1,200. And I can use that to cover the extra electrical costs, so I'll still be at net zero. But you kind of need another side hustle just to kind of hold you over, just so you can continue to create capital outside of mining and outside of investing. And it also brings in a cash flow that essentially is liquid, right? You can use that money right away. So if I'm getting paid through PayPal or through eBay, it goes into my bank account. That's fiat currency. I can use that right away. So I can also, you know, if things get slow here, I get bored, I can continue to buy broken hash boards on eBay. They are always on there. Mining cases through Alibaba or through eBay, and you can essentially rebuild your Antminer L3 Pluses so they look brand new and they're totally rebuilt with all new fans, and hash boards have all been tested and ran, and we upgrade all the Hive OS firmware on them as well. And so there's tons of other stuff that you can still do, and as long as you're investing in yourself and investing in kind of what you want to do, it tends to, you know, go pretty well. So I'm very lucky that I have a 30 by 60 steel building, and I'm pretty handy, you know, so I do all this stuff by myself, as far as like I did the whole 400 amp service upgrade, aside from when they had to pull the new wires and connect them from SDG&E, you know. This whole building I did everything on, all the electrical in here. Our other videos you checked out, we have the mining room set up extremely efficient. You know, there's tons of different things that you can do to make even a not so efficient miner work a little bit more efficiently, especially running like a GPU mining is, I did it for a long time. I had about 50 GPUs running, and they just make so much heat that it's so inefficient unless you're running them like damn near outside in the middle of the night when it's cool. It's really hard to just keep them cool, period. So you can really, like, you know, and the ASICs, what I like about the ASICs is that they move so much air, and they have to move that air anyway, that you can isolate that air, like I showed you in my mining room. You can isolate that air in a duct and blow it out, and use the ASICs to actually draw fresh, cool air into that room to cool the ASICs and cool the rooms, you know. So your mining room is essentially being cooled by the energy that it has to expend anyway. You know, it's like a turbocharger on the car. The exhaust has to go out anyway. You might as well spin a turbine, you know. So those are just some things that I wanted you guys to be aware of when you are starting a cryptocurrency mining company, or you're thinking about kind of how you wanted to set everything up as far as your capital investment you might need in the beginning, figuring out what kind of efficiency miners you need, figuring out, you know, what kind of algorithm you really want to mine. I mean, is it Scrypt? Is it, you know, SHA-256, you know, for Bitcoin? Do you want to do GPU mining? Because, I mean, if you can get GPUs, I mean, it might be better to do that. I have no idea. I mean, it really just comes down to what you want to do. And also, is this going to be your main source of income? Are you going to have another income? It's always 2 incomes or 3 incomes is always better than 1, period. So once you get a cryptocurrency mining company running, if you don't have other stuff for that company to do, you might need another income just to kind of keep you busy. And once everything's up and going, I mean, there's not going to really be that much to do. So especially for me, I have to stay busy. I'm hyper as hell. So me having other projects like repairing Antminer L3 Pluses, or let's say I decide I want to start repairing even a different type of miner, well, I can learn about that and try to repair those, you know. Or I can buy miners that are broken, get those in and try to repair them and resell them, you know. Like, there's always stuff you can do. So you're going to want to keep some capital available. You're going to want to keep about 30% of your capital in fiat anyway, or if not in fiat, in USDT or USDC. And this is not financial advice. So just keep all that stuff in mind. Hopefully this stuff helps you guys. It is a lot of trial and error on my end to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, where I wanted to put my money, where my money would be best spent, where my electricity would be best used. And a lot of that is because our electric and energy rates down here in San Diego are just so egregious that it kind of puts you in a position where you have to figure out all that stuff. You know, I've had 30 Antminer L3 Pluses here, and I can't run any of them. You know, like, you literally can't. You will burn so much power, and it's not at all profitable. You know, I mean, here, let's plug, just real quick before you guys go. Let's plug 504 mega hashes a second, 660 watts, USD, and our USD, yeah, so you're losing $3 a day in San Diego when you mine with an L3 Plus on factory overclocks. So that's It's just horrible. So it's not good to mine with an L3 Plus, but what's cool about having L3 Pluses around is you can supplement with stuff. So say I'm actually, like it's a peak summer day, and I don't want to be backfeeding the grid. You know, I mean, I will because the system is so big, but sometimes maybe I'll just spark up a couple Antminer L3 Pluses because I have the available amperage on my panel to do that. And also, I know that I could run those for 4 hours in peak sunlight, you know, say from like 11 to 3. And I know that I'm technically, it's not really going to cost me anything because my solar is outputting so much extra energy. And that power is better used at that time of day with those miners than it is backfeeding to the grid, because what happens is you don't actually get paid net offset net metering for that power that you're backfeeding, because you get paid a credit. So you get a credit for every kilowatt hour that you backfeed, but it's based on the time period that you backfed that specific kilowatt hour. So if you weren't on peak usage times and you backfed that, then when you go to use power during peak usage times, which you will because you're running crypto miners, they run 24/7, now that couple of kilowatts that you sent back at 36 cents per kilowatt is now being credited to your account at 36 cents per kilowatt, but you're using, during peak hours, you're using a few kilowatts that are at 56 cents per kilowatt. So you're not getting kilowatt per kilowatt back, you're getting kilowatt credits for that specific kilowatt that you put back during whichever metering time you put it back. So it's a total pain in the butt to figure all this stuff out. To be honest, there's just too much stuff to figure out. So keep all that stuff in mind if you want to get started in cryptocurrency mining, at least if you're trying to build a company or whatever. It is extremely smart not to have a cryptocurrency mining company in California, period. The best places would obviously be Texas, and Florida's on nuclear energy. I think one of the cheapest kilowatts per hour is in Washington. They're about 9 cents per kilowatt hour, I think, also. So, you know, if you don't have the means or the capital to invest in a giant solar system, don't even bother. I mean, you would have to, even if you just had 90 grand to invest in Antminer L7s, you're still only going to be making, you know, $1,600 a month, and that's if you have 100% offset to where you can actually hold on to that cryptocurrency until it becomes more valuable. Because if you're having to sell stuff off or convert into fiat, you know, every month to pay bills, it's kind of a waste because you're kind of at the behest of the crypto market at that point, and it's not really helping you to really mine the crypto. Anything you mine, you want to be able to hold, or at least set yourself up to where you can hold it for a decent amount of time. So, you know, lots of stuff to think about, and I'll keep you guys posted on kind of what's going on around here. We just finished the 400 amp upgrade, like I said. So we have an extra essentially 200 amps available outside this building, so all the solar will stay local to this building instead of having to run back to what used to be the main panel on the house, because the house is now being fed from the new panel, which is a remote panel on our building. So, and then we're just waiting on some funding stuff to come through, which should be coming through this week, and then hopefully we can get the solar scheduled, get the permits done, and we can get all that stuff installed and inspected too, and then just start really diving into, I'll take you guys on a journey to get the L7s and hopefully figure that stuff out, you know, because it is going to be a pain to kind of find 3 from a trusted source close by to where you can go lay hands and eyes on the actual miners before you hand over $30,000, $60,000, $90,000 to someone. So keep all that stuff in mind. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe. I'll be adding more information as I go. As I learn, you guys will learn too. I'll be doing some updates on our Bobcat miners. We do have HNT miners. I have about 5 of them, and we're separating them out all over different properties that I have access to in San Diego, as well as this property, which we have access to. We have clear line of sight over a gigantic city, El Cajon, San Diego. And our 10 dBi antenna actually goes almost all the way up to the Canada border and all the way down into Mexico. So it's hitting way out there. So I'll be doing update videos on that and how kind of that stuff affects your profitability. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the videos. Subscribe to Corey's Coins LLC here in San Diego. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. And keep mining.